You heard in the update, we've been talking about it all morning. We know when and we know who. Saturday night, the Lions host the Commanders, divisional round of the playoffs. John, it's who you said you wanted.
Yep, the Commanders. Bring them on.
And I don't like the matchup. I love the matchup. We got TJ Lang in studio. TJ, how do you feel about Washington?
Yeah, I mean, we broke it down Friday when I was in with the afternoon guys and kind of ranked, 1 to 4 who we want to play. Washington was my number one, just because, like you guys said, you match up well with them. I think your offensive line has a massive advantage over their D-line. I think your run game has a massive advantage over Washington's defense. So, and I know that the talk all week is going to be, oh, my God, running quarterback, blah, blah, blah. Which, yeah, I mean, they're definitely going to have their hands full with Jaden Daniels, no doubt, right? Especially a guy that's playing with house money. I mean, he could be dangerous. But I like the matchup. I mean, Detroit is a tested team. They've been through these games, for not only the last half of the season, but going back to last year as well. So I'm with you, man. John, are you torn this morning? I know you were you said you were still rooting for the Lions. I know that. But
yeah. Are we supposed to ask you this every time that the
I do get asked
play
every time the Green
Bay?
Bay Packers play. I'm glad they don't have to this year. But no, I do. I do think it is a good matchup. And you look at Washington, and, yeah, it's been great what they've done this year. I think yesterday made it 7 wins in the last 30 seconds, that team has had. So, props to them. They're finding a way to win close games. I just can't help myself but to think that it's not going to be very close next week when they come to town.
I don't feel like it's going to be either. And we've both had experiences as, our first time in the playoffs. You were there with a very experienced quarterback. How much do you think the experience that the Lions had last year pays dividends this year in not just getting the NFC Championship game, but finding ways to get over the hump, whether it's the divisional round, the NFC Championship game, and just getting to the Super Bowl?
Yeah, it's huge because you know what it takes, right?
Yeah.
And I think we saw that experience pay off the last game of the season versus the Vikings. The Lions didn't look like the moment was too big for them. They looked like a team that's like, yeah, we know what it's like to be in a must-win game. I've got to have a game. We know some of the mistakes that you can't make in those games, and you understand. You kind of lean back on those memories a little bit to kind of remind yourself, okay, like, let's not panic. And that's why I said all year long with Dan Campbell and some of the decisions that he was making going forward on fourth downs and some of like the high stressful moments. I think a lot of that was by design because you're going to have to rely on those plays come playoff time when you need a big fourth down. Look at last night. I mean, I think Washington was 3 of 4 on fourth downs, or 3 of 5, I want to say, on fourth downs. But the Lions have that experience, whether it's high stress play, got to have it play. Hey, this is a big drive. We have to get points. They've had that experience not only from Dan being so aggressive this season, but you're right, John, going back to the run that they had to the NFC title game last year.
When you were playing the first playoff game that you played in, was there an eye-opening moment? Because there's different speeds of the NFL season. Obviously, preseason is different than the regular season. You get to the end of the season and you're playing against Minnesota for the division, for the 1 seed, there's a different speed. There's a different speed when you get to each and every round of the playoffs.
Yeah.
What was your initial reaction to, holy crap, this is a lot faster? Because you could see it on it comes across the TV. It's more intense, it's more physical, it's faster. But what was your personal response or reaction to, holy crap, how fast is this game going to get?
I think, the speed definitely, but I think more so the pressure, man, if I have a bad play, normally in the regular season, now if I get beat, okay, let's fix it, right? I'm not happy about it, but it's going to suck watching on film Monday, but let's learn from it.
Yeah.
Playoff game, it's like,
did I just cost the team the season?
You just cost the team your season, right, if you're having bad play. So I think the pressure can get to a lot of young guys because there is no coming in Monday and fixing it. You're going in Monday and packing your locker and getting out of there.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of guys looking around like, man, kind of let us down a little bit. So I think the pressure gets to you more when you think that, hey, one negative player, oh, man, I didn't do my job. Does that cost you the season? But that's why, and I remember being a young player. I mean, my rookie year, I think we went out to Arizona in the wild card game, ended up getting into a shootout. Our left tackle got hurt, so I had to play like the whole fourth quarter into overtime.
Yeah. And
it was like, oh my goodness, like these guys are flying. Like I don't want to be the guy to let up a big sack or something. We end up losing that game. But the more playoff games I played in, the more you started
you get accustomed to it. You get
understand
used to
what
it.
Playoff football is. Yeah. And I think that obviously that run last year that they had to the NFC Championship game and getting out to a 17-point lead, they understand what it takes to be successful in those moments. And they also understand what it takes to be consistent and keep it going, right? Because I think they know just as well as they built a lead last year, they understand in the playoffs how quickly it can disappear too.
Yeah.
So I think that's a valuable lesson as well.
We want your reactions. 248-539-9797. It's the Commanders. It's Saturday night. It's Ford Field. And again, all the credit in the world to Jaden Daniels for going on the road and picking up a win as a rookie in the NFL playoffs, right? It hasn't happened often. He's just the fourth quarterback to do it. It was Flacco, Mark Sanchez, and Russell Wilson, the other three. Now, Flacco and Mark Sanchez won a second road game after it. But, guys, I think there's a big jump from playing at Tampa to playing in the Lions' den in Detroit.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Last night, there were MVP chants for Jaden Daniels.
You heard Washington fans.
Washington fans were loud. Guys, they're not going to have a presence at Ford Field. This is going to be a true hostile environment for a rookie quarterback. It's a completely different environment. And I do think Aaron Glenn's going to have to blitz to get pressure. I'd like blitzing a rookie quarterback. I don't want to have to blitz a veteran quarterback. I think this is a good matchup. As much as Daniels is going to make a play or two in this game, I think it's a good matchup for the Lions.
Yeah, and you're going to have to, kind of your recipe all season is, let's get out to that early lead. Let's make the other team uncomfortable, right? You can't afford a Buffalo performance where the first two drives are 3 and out, and then you're down, 21-7, whatever it was, Buffalo, and then second half coming out, I think in that Buffalo game it was punt and then it was a fumble or interception, I want to say. So you can't afford that against good teams like this that can give them any sort of hope. So I think that you're right. A big key too is you mentioned it, Aaron Glenn. I mean, I think he's going to have to be a bit of a chameleon these playoffs, right? I don't think you can afford really that, hey, we're going to rush 4-man coverage. He did a great job against Minnesota mixing up a lot of pressures and mixing up a lot of zone blitzes and dropping guys into coverage and bringing extra guys off the edge. I mean, I know we kind of dogged on Sam Darnold and his performance, but you go back and watch that game. I mean, they were throwing him off a little bit with some of the pressures. Even that one play where I think it was a 4th down, he threw a quick fade to Jefferson and he overthrew it. Well, people don't, you watch that play, Brian Branch is flying off the edge and he gets a piece of Sam Darnold. So you know what I mean? You're going to have to be timely with some of these blitzes, and I think you can confuse some rookie quarterbacks. I think that's the last thing that comes with some young quarterbacks sometimes, John, is identifying all the protections. A lot of guys now, they just rely on, okay, if I'm wrong, I'll just use my legs to get out of it. So I think there is going to be an opportunity, especially being at home with the noise, to try to confuse that offense a little bit for Washington and get some free runners at the quarterback. Now you got to bring them down, right? Because we all know with quarterbacks like that, you miss. And it's like, oh, boy, watch out.
Well,
there's a lot of grass.
The end of that game, Kalijah Cansey, he makes a play in the middle.
Yeah,
he's got the quarterback,
right,
but he gets a little stiff arm, a little speed from Daniels, picks up the first, and they can kick the game-winning kick with 0 seconds on the clock. If Cansey makes the play, you force him to kick the field goal, and at least you have like 30 or 40 seconds to try to respond. But you can't whiff there.
Yeah, and I'm curious as to how Aaron Glenn does things post-snap. Because there's one thing to get up to line of scrimmage, right? Hey, you get your basic checks, and you're looking at the defensive front, you're looking at the coverage, you put a guy in motion, and all of a sudden, okay, you're trying to identify man or zone. But then and that's easy at that point to be able to make calls, make some adjustments.
Yeah.
When things change post-snap, which in the NFL they're going to, and they should, that's where you're really starting to test a young quarterback and how much does he trust what he sees? How much does he trust what he knows, his reaction? Because some of those things you can't think about. There's not time to think about it after the snap.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden, how can you force some errors with a young quarterback? And I think the answer should be yes.
Yeah. Yeah, because so many young quarterbacks are taught, hey, versus man coverage, we're doing this, right? So if you show man coverage and then all of a sudden, oh, no, they dropped into cover 4, right? It kind of stalls you for that split second. So no doubt it's going to be interesting what they do on defense. I think it's also going to be interesting to see what they do with the return of David Montgomery.
Yeah.
I mean, Jahmyr Gibbs, what he did the last 3 games and getting better every game, averaging 160 all-purpose yards, couple touchdowns a game. Like, are they going to go back to split time with him and Montgomery, or do you kind of ride with like, hey, Jahmyr's more of our bell cow lead guy. Let's get David kind of mixed back into things, on some third downs or some, hey, some power runs, second and short. But
or do you
that's going to be interesting to me because
Montgomery,
Jahmyr Gibbs has been so damn good over the past three weeks.
And you don't want to underestimate a defense, right? They still got Deron Payne in there. They still got Jonathan Allen in there. But do you somewhat, hey, let's let David Montgomery get comfortable again. And maybe instead of 12 or 13 carries, he only gets 7 or 8. The other ones are given to Gibbs. But on the flip side, you want to make sure that you don't overwork Gibbs because you know you're going to need him against Philly or the Rams or the Vikings, and then obviously in the Super Bowl. Like there's kind of a juggling act. It'll be interesting to see how they do play that, that relationship, that ratio of runs to carries to touches with those two guys.
I know. I'm with you. And Jahmyr Gibbs, since being the lead guy, has been
he's taken over.
But he's been a huge threat out of the backfield as a receiver too.
Yeah.
I mean, averaging 4 catches and 45, 50 yards, whatever it is too. So that'll be interesting to see what the game plan is. Obviously, going to be a big storyline come Saturday night. I was kind of surprised that, the schedule. I thought they were going to put both NFC games on Sunday, especially with the Rams and Vikings playing tonight.
A little bit of a bone.
Especially with all the AFC teams playing early this weekend. I was thinking Lions were going to be that afternoon Sunday game, but hey, let's get it kicked off Saturday night, man. Ford Field is going to be. Man, that place is going to be rocking.
Bonkers.
Oh, it's going to be bonkers.
I'm so glad, too,
fun.
we get a chance to watch it Saturday night, and then you don't
have
have to get up early on Sunday morning.
No kidding.
It'd be a nice mix-up.
Exactly.